Let me get my guests on the air here. All right, ladies and
Hello?
gentlemen. Jared, what's going on, man?
Oh, hey, what's going on, man? Sorry I'm late.
Not a problem, man. Thank you so much for being on the show, man. Truly appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on the show.
All right, Jared, let's go ahead and begin. You work for a company called Fully Loaded Wrestling. For the fans who may not be familiar with what your company is and what it's all about, talk about how that Fully Loaded Wrestling got started.
Well, it's actually it was owned by myself and my business partner, Aaron Barclay, and we started it. We had our first event back in March here in Minot, North Dakota, and since then we've been all over the state. Um, Basically, we just wanted a wrestling company because there really isn't anything in the region that's worth going to and seeing. So our goal was to just put on the best wrestling show we could, and so far so good.
So, um, as far as Fully Loaded is concerned, talk about some of the wrestlers that's on the roster. You don't have to name them all, but a couple that you consider some of your top tier guys, and what do they bring to the table at Fully Loaded Wrestling?
Well, our heavyweight champion is Darren Corbin, and he's nationally known. He wrestles all over the country, West Coast. He's been to the East Coast with, he's done work with Chikara. So he's been in the business a long time. So he's funny, but he's also just a technically sound wrestler. So we have that, and then we have our tag team champions are Guns and Beer, and they're probably, I'd say they're the best tag team in the Midwest. Just a couple of hard-working brawlers, and then to round it out, we have Chainsaw King, who's also from the Midwest. He's done some work with Chikara. He wrestled Tommy Dreamer at our show back in June in a street fight that still talked about here.
That's awesome, man. I've heard some good things about Fully Loaded Wrestling. What they have done, what they have accomplished. It's definitely a big deal in the Midwest, and the success and the strong fan base. Um, Speaking of your fan base, how would you best describe the fan base? Like, what's your take on their support that they bring every single show?
We have ravenous fans. We have very loud fans. I do commentary with Tony, another guy who works for us, and there are times the crowd is so loud you can't even hear us over they're clipping microphones, and it's a very ravenous crowd, and they continue to grow. We just keep adding people each show because word of mouth gets around that we put on a really good show, and hopefully this weekend in Williston for the FLW Cup we'll have an even bigger crowd than we had back in June in Williston, which was a really big crowd.
Obviously, the wrestling world has mourned the loss of another legend just recently, as of 5 days ago. Nick Bockwinkel, mostly known for his tenure in the AWA, he passed away at the age of 80. Definitely is a well-respected, technically savvy competitor. Your thoughts on Nick's passing and the legacy he left in the wrestling industry?
Living in North Dakota, growing up here, you've heard of Nick Bockwinkel because of the AWA, and he was just a consummate professional. He's one of the best technically sound wrestlers. His influence, there are very few wrestlers who weren't influenced in this region by Nick Bockwinkel and the hard work that he put into this industry. And he's definitely a guy that, was worthy of the Hall of Fame. I mean, his career speaks for itself. He was tremendous, a little bit more before my time, but as I got older, I started watching more of his stuff, and anytime him and Kurt Hennig were in the ring was probably the most technically sound match you were going to see. So,
I've heard great things about Nick Bockwinkel, and clearly he was way before my time as being a wrestling fan. I started watching wrestling in the early 90s. I'm talking before Attitude Era.
oh yeah, me too.
And he's definitely known for his technically style, and I guess there's not much technically savvy wrestlers, I guess notably, as far as on the main companies. It's all about high flying. It's about being brawler style, whatever the case may be. Way before Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect, and I'll even put Chris Benoit in there, despite how polarizing he is. But Dick Bockwinkel made it cool to be a technically sound wrestler. He made it work. I don't know if people like the style or not on today's wrestling these days, but he made it compelling to be a very successful, technically sound type of competitor. At least that's how
Yeah.
I feel about it. And he's the third WWE Hall of Famer who passed away this year. Obviously, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and Roddy Piper. And I guess those guys are more popular in people's eyes than Botwinkle, but Botwinkle, uh, he left a huge legacy. AWA, way before WWE. I mean, there was one point that AWA and WWF were kind of joined forces at one point,
Hmm.
and it was just and man, just a huge loss in the wrestling industry, a huge loss.
Definitely.
Um, so as far as fully loaded wrestling is concerned, what do you consider the biggest highlight for fully loaded wrestling this year? It could be a match, it could be a storyline, it could be anything that stands out. What do you consider the biggest moment of fully loaded wrestling this year?
Well, I would say it was our last event, the picture spot title shot ladder match. It was 6 guys. There was a briefcase, and it was just 25 minutes of some of the craziest wrestling that we've seen in this region. I don't know of any match that was like it in this area ever. And the crowd was going nuts. Yeah, you can see it. We have a YouTube channel where we have a weekly show, and it was on. We put that up on Tuesday, and it's blowing up. And people, I mean, the crowd loved the match. Chainsaw King ended up winning the match, but I'd say to date that's probably the best received match we have had. That or when King took on Tommy Dreamer last June in the street fight in Williston.
That's awesome. And for people that wants to learn more of fully loaded wrestling and upcoming shows, they are on Facebook. Just look up Fully Loaded Wrestling and like their page. Show your support. Support your local indie pro wrestling companies. Um, and it's just something that I keep preaching as far as support. Uh, Obviously, people going to always watch what's on TV, and I get all of that. Hell, I'm guilty of it too. I watch it. A
Yeah.
lot of people do, but those wrestlers that you see on TV, they started somewhere. They started in the indies. They started performing in front of not big crowds, but they were, but they it started. It was a journey for them, men and women. They had to go through. They didn't get paid as much then as they are now. You got, and I feel like without those indie wrestling journeys that they started, they would not be where they are today. And
Oh yeah. Well,
that's
I mean, Seth Rollins was their world heavyweight champion,
mhm.
and he made his start on the Indies. He's one of the biggest stars in the Midwest. He's from Iowa, so I mean, who knows? You could just go down the street, you could be seeing the next Seth Rollins at one of these shows. So
Absolutely. Um, Obviously with Rollins, he torn his ACL, MCL, middle meniscus, and wrestling. There's always this perception from fans that don't watch wrestling or may not understand the product. They're gonna use that F word. Um, and what's your take when you hear fans that say that particular word? Do you think maybe they just don't watch it? Do you think they may not understand what wrestling really is and what it's all about? Like, what's your take when people say that word?
well, when people say it's fake, I just usually look at them like, well, you obviously don't understand the art form. You don't understand what they're doing, which is fine. I mean, wrestling's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. It's not going to be, not everyone's going to like it. So I just, I don't take it too personal. I just assume that they don't, they just don't appreciate it like wrestling fans do, and they should. It's not, it's a beautiful sport. It's fun to watch, and to me, it's not fake in any way. I could see why people would use that word or why they do it, but to me, there's an ignorance to that because they just don't understand the art form that's going on in front of them.
Yeah, I will. Is wrestling is more real than those quote unquote reality TV shows. Let's just put it
Oh,
that way.
definitely.
Uh, so if you're gonna call wrestling that, then then what do you watch on your or what do you watch
Yeah.
from those TV shows? Like there's always an argument every other scene and things like that. Hey, it's a guilty pleasure. I watch reality TV like a lot of people do, but you could just tell that was scripted or whatever. But like you said, it's not gonna be everyone's cup of tea. You can't please everybody, and as long
No.
as you got the fan base and they understand the product, then I guess at the end of the day, that's what truly matters. Um, so does Fully Loaded Wrestling have any plans in the works in 2016? Like you may have a wrestler from a big name company that's going to make an appearance. Like any big plans that you are able to promote at this time?
We definitely have some big plans coming up, but I don't think I'm going to say who it is. But I do know that we have a few bigger names that you've seen on national TV that'll be coming their way to Fully Loaded Wrestling in February, March of 2016. We have our anniversary show in Minot in March, the 18th and 19th, and we'll have some surprises for people then, and some announcements to make about that. So we got some big things coming up in this next year. We're going pretty much every month now, through the winter and into spring. So some big things coming your way.
Well, Jared, it was great chatting with you. Thank you so very much for your time. Everybody, please be on the lookout for Fully Loaded Wrestling. You can check out their Facebook fan page for upcoming shows and more info on their roster, etc. Continued success with Fully Loaded Wrestling. Thank you for your time, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
All right, that was Jared Gebhardt of Fully Loaded Wrestling.